All right, next item on the agenda, item 4, implementation of the Arizona Interoperable Channels Plan. This is information and discussion. Michael.
Emphasis is on discussion. Where are we? Oh, all right, there we go. All right, to review real quick, last time we updated the Arizona Interoperable Channels Plan was in January of this year, 2012. And basically, the plan was to incorporate Arizona Interoperable Channels, or the AIRS channels, along with certain select NIFOG channels, national channels, and introduce standard naming conventions for Arizona. And it was it took a considerable amount of time to get all the feedback incorporated, external changes as the NIFOG was changing, and also to correct inaccuracies in the document. But currently the plan seems to have stabilized with priority programming guides for VHF, UHF, and 7/800 megahertz bands. And so we thought we'd take a look and see how we were doing. The drivers behind the Interoperable Channels Plan is a key part of the National Emergency Communications Plan, various initiatives and milestones in that plan. Talk about the NIFOG channels and the use of them. Also in the Arizona SCIP, initiatives 3, 4, and 6 speak directly or indirectly to the Interoperable Channels Plan. Also incorporated into the procurement process in the state of Arizona, we've incorporated recommendations or directives, let's say, to assure that people are aware when they do purchase radios that it's good to put in the Interoperable Channels Plan. Pitch process and the procurement process has that pretty well incorporated into it. So, how are we doing statewide on the adoption of the Interoperable Channels Plan? The outreach plan has the recommendations for use of it incorporated into it. Over the past year or so, we've had 2 major influences. The narrowbanding effort has caused people to reprogram their radios, and as while they're in the middle of reprogramming, many had planned to incorporate the interoperable channels. And then also during the NECP Goal 2 events last year, we reviewed the after-action reports, and the recommendation to include and use the Interoperable Channels Plan was in 10 of the county's AARs. And 5, the recommendation was to continue to use the interoperable channels because they had already had them programmed. Also, as part of the TICP program, we're asking and encouraging people to use the interoperable channels. So if we review where we're at with the TICP process, 5 TICPs already have the Interoperable Channels Plan incorporated into them and recommend the use of those channels. 2 of them are not approved yet, but they're in draft form and they're in there, as I checked. Okay, so. And then as we progress to hit the remaining TICPs that are scheduled for 2013, we'll be encouraging use of the channels plan there. As a result of this review, we did notice that a couple of TICPs were done prior to our recommendation, so we'll probably go back and encourage an update to those. Okay, so currently we were wondering about how best to promote the use of the plan. Some thoughts were on surveys, determine the status, their intentions, what's in the way of using it. Encourage the use of the Interoperable Channels Plan during exercises and COMEL trainings. Continue with supporting the development of TICPs, and then possibly using the Arizona associations to promote and encourage the use of the channels plan. So we kind of threw these up there and then like to open it up for discussion. If anybody has any pros, cons, or discussion about these ideas and how to best promote the use of the channels plan.
Are all the Aries channels now?
Yeah.
Included in the channel.
They're in the channel.
That helps.
Yeah.
Michael, I think one of the challenges that at least I've experienced from my counterparts is that channel plan was kind of in a state of change for quite a long time, and really through no fault of anybody. It was constantly being updated, so there was always this moving target that everybody was trying to hit. So I think, I don't want to say lack of participation, but I think some people were, I'm going to wait till the dust settles before I decide to pull the trigger, or, you know, they have different iterations of it and they're not actually where they should be. So I think you're going to
where they want to be.
Yeah,
because I found some that
compliance.
were kind of split. Let's load the stuff that we know, and let's wait until the other stuff settles down almost. So
I think from the way I see, I know you guys have some control over the pitch process with your state agencies, but I would implement that level of control in the IWG process for any grant applications that go through. I think, you know, I know Lisa's been pretty, you know, Lisa Hansen's been very adamant about that, including that as a condition of your grant funding, but the IWG should really request that be included in the actual IJ process, that you see that they're specifying they're going to use these channels with any grant-funded equipment. Just make it a condition of the award that they have to do that, and that'll gain some additional compliance on that, I think. But I think the IWG is probably the best resource, because either RAC, UASI, you know, any of those funding sources have to go through the IWG process. So that's really our level of control of kind of steering people in the right direction with their grant funding.
A great suggestion, Justin. In fact, we had sent a letter to Director Angia last spring, just after last year's grant cycle contracts had gone out, and so we may see that as part of the sub-grantee agreements for this cycle. Those have not, or I have not seen any of those yet this year, so I'm not sure if that made it into this cycle sub-grantee agreement. But we will continue to work with Homeland Security to see if we can have that added in, and of course have it part of the IWG review process as well.
Another suggestion would be to maybe include some language, I know maybe in the sub-grantee or somewhere, but that if you buy a multi-band radio, the expectation is you're going to put the various versions in there. So if you have a tri-band radio, you should have the VU 7, 8 all capable in that piece of equipment, and if you buy the single band, you're going to put whatever appropriate band you have. If you're buying a multi-band radio, you have plenty of room to put all of those in there. You're not going to run out of things.
that's a good point.
Maybe just another condition of that, if you are going to buy a dual band or tri-band radio, the expectation is you're going to put all those in there.
Right. That's a good point. And again, to go back, I mean, I hadn't realized that it actually has been 9 months since there was a change to that document, which is a record for the last 2 years.
I think since things have stabilized, it's going to be a lot easier to convince people in the education outreach to go ahead, because it's expensive to keep reprogramming radios, and especially for statewide agencies, really, really expensive.
So what do you think about using the associations and trying to promote it through that? Because that's something we've not done in the past.
I personally think it will help, because there's a lot of the private services that get the Homeland Security grants, and they'll get some of the other exposure. So that's just good education. But really what it comes down to is the more you use it, the more they'll want to play.
Okay.
If they're the only ones that aren't
able to
communicate, they want to do it. So,
Right.
yeah, but you can, I think, using associations anyway to get it out. It's good.
Okay.
It might be of interest to figure out why people haven't done it too. I don't know what kind of response you would get, but is it subscriber equipment that's not capable, or do they have too many channels they have to put in a 48-channel radio, or what are they carrying that they can't do that? some of that's gonna go away, because we're gonna have to buy some new equipment here soon, very soon. But I think that, that might be interesting to figure out where to target your efforts. If it's a equipment-based problem, there's only so much you can do about that. You can educate them all day, but
Right.
until they're able to do it, they're not gonna be in compliance with you.
I still think it's knowledge. There's a lot of, there's been a lot of training that's gone on, a lot that's available. But I still run into all kinds of folks that are like, what? No, what is that? Or agencies that are resistant to use it because they say it doesn't work. When we talk about air specifically. Yeah.
You might want to consider getting on the agenda for MAG, CAG, League of Cities type meetings, just short to the point. There are operational tools out there that can reduce your risk.
Right.
And since those folks control the budgets for those operational entities, it may behoove them to, or, entice them to go back and ask the questions, are we doing this or not, and how come? Because it costs programming and some education training, but most of the time doesn't require going out and buying any more equipment.
Right.
Another thing, Michael, that's probably a good suggestion to consider is your private parties, like Mark had mentioned, that are out doing the work, their own communications, creative communications. They do work for jurisdictions that don't have interoperability experts on staff that can guide them. So if I'm a small agency and I drop my radios off at, Joe's radio shop, they're not going to know what to tell him or her to put in there.
Right.
So
That is a good avenue. Okay.
Thanks, Michael. Did you get everything you needed from me?
Yeah. More than I expected, which is good.
All right, we're usually full of it.